For the second question, we'll start with Mr. Wright. What are your ideas for how the Alabama government can stimulate the state's economy without increasing the tax burden on current and future generations?
Okay. By the way, I'm a native of Huntsville as well. Just thought I'd throw that in there. First of all, I'm against all tax increases at this time. We cannot handle it. There's two things that I think we can do to stimulate our economic base with respect to corporations and small businesses. We need to support a health insurance tax credit for businesses. I also support modification of workman compensation rules. And that is very important there because when you have an employee who is working only part-time, you are required to pay full-time workman's compensation. And if you have a business that's running personnel costs of anywhere between 17 and 20%, that is a very significant burden. So those are the two things that I'm pushing for right now. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson.
One of the things that I started talking about when I first announced that I was running is that we need to stimulate our economy. The only way that we really deal with our budget crisis is by growing our economy, by generating new revenue. And I identified two things that we can do to help us stimulate our economy during this time of recession. First, we can do what Governor Riley and the Republican Party has been trying to do for some time now, which is give small business owners the ability to write off twice the amount that they pay on their health care. So that would put a little bit of money back into their pockets and enable them perhaps to move their businesses a little bit further. The second thing I thought that we should do is to create a partner program. A lot of people don't know it, but the federal government provides seed grants to technology industries. And Alabama has been very good at providing grants and incentives to manufacturing jobs. What we need to do is to expand those types of incentives to technology industries and to small business owners. It shouldn't be geared toward just one sector of the economy. Those are two things that we can do, concrete ideas. It's not lofty talk, it's not pie in the sky. These are concrete things that we can do in the near term to have real change in our economy. And one thing I wanted to say about prior year budgeting, I appreciate my friend Paul putting forth that idea because I like concrete ideas. I don't like lofty talk. But there's one thing that I think is a problem with it. If we went to a prior year budgeting, we wouldn't have a problem with proration any particular year. Every year we would be in proration. Alabama schools would be funded 2 years behind every other school in the nation. And I think that when we read the fine print, that's something we want to avoid.
Mr. Sanford.
In order for the state to help stimulate the economy, we're going to have to figure out a way to offer some sort of incentive to new industries, to new businesses, and to current small business owners. A couple of the options that you just heard thrown out, allowing a business owner to write off twice the expense of the health care really only puts back about 15 cents of every dollar that I spend on health care back into my pocket. It really is not going to be an opportunity from a business perspective that's going to allow me a means or a tool to actually create a new job. It's feel-good legislation, it's well-meaning legislation. It actually does give me a little bit as a business owner, but it does not stimulate my business to a point where I can actually go out and create another job or take some more risk to do that. It falls a little bit short. We do need to offer the incentive package that the state currently does in regards to manufacturing companies at a more local level to small businesses. If we don't get our budget in order, we're never going to have the means to do that. We're not going to have the revenues. We're not going to have a tax base that will provide the opportunity to give incentives to new business owners. We'll deal with the prior year budget later.
Mrs. Hunter.
There's two aspects to this. There's how do you budget and how do you increase your tax base. Okay, so on the budgeting side, I am actually a fan of justifying every single expense, not necessarily prior year budgeting, but every single expense has to be budgeted. When you are talking about how do you budget in your personal life, you figure out what you can afford and what you can't afford. It's the same with the legislature. Projections are okay, but they have to be realistic. Now, with respect to expanding the tax base, Look, we have an unbelievable opportunity to expand on our engineering base here in town. We already have companies like Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Bell, building the Kiowa Warrior. I mean, we can take this base of engineering and expand into the private sector. We can expand into the right kinds of engineering. We don't want to invite unions into Alabama, so it's got to be the right kind of engineering, the right kind of manufacturing. We've got population density issues, we've got workforce development issues, we've got infrastructure issues. All of these would have to be addressed, but we would be optimal for some kinds of manufacturing, which would be great. It would offer you jobs and would offer you a driving economy. Now, Alabama stands to lead the country out of the recession. So that's good for you, and I hope many of you will consider staying in Alabama when you choose your careers. I think that we can get more revenue most effectively and most painlessly by expanding our economic base. And here in Huntsville, that means building on our engineering.
Mr. James.
Your question is how we're going to stimulate the economy. The way to stimulate the economy is to create more jobs. In order for us to effectively attract industry into a city like Huntsville, we must work closely with our community colleges and our vocational and technical education programs, and also the state board, to design a curriculum that aligns with industry, that aligns with the vocational education programs and industry, so that we're training the workforce to go into industry. And that cuts out a layer in between for industry to pay for individuals to come from other states and consultants to come in and train the workforce. So we have jobs here in Huntsville, but we don't have enough jobs for those individuals with limited amount of education. A vocational and technical education program would enhance the workforce and put people back to work. I would also eliminate the state income tax for senior citizens making less than $30,000 a year. And families that, couples making less than $60,000 or less, so that they're able to spend more. The only way that, in North Alabama we're going to stimulate the economy is we're going to have to put people back to work and also have families save.